Hi, Leah and Margaret and Karen.
Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hope everyone's doing well. We're getting ready to get started in just a couple more minutes.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's usually pretty full. Leah, who's that fur baby?
This is Georgia.
Hi, Georgia. Hi, beautiful.
So she's interested also.
That's awesome. Oh, what a sweet girl. I had a big dog named George at one time.
She's a little rescue.
Yeah, what a sweetheart. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now I'm on, okay. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. That's okay. Yeah. Hopefully I won't be coughing all evening, yeah. That seems to have improved. So good evening, everyone, both here in the Kadampa and everyone who's on Zoom. This is our second session in the Discovering Buddhism module, Refuge and the Three Jewels. So do you have any announcements, Linda?
I don't really have any announcements other than keep your eye on the Kadampa Center calendar because we do have some exciting things coming up. A couple of monks will be accompanying Geshe Sangpo back from India from Sarah J Monastery, and they will be doing sand mandalas while we're here. So be sure to keep your eye on the calendar for dates that are coming up all through February and March. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll begin with some prayers. You can open the Gold Prayer Book to page 34, and then we'll do our first meditation of the evening after that. So we'll read the four immeasurables together 3 times, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. We'll read that together 3 times in English. The first 2 lines being the refuge prayer, which is the subject of this module. And then we'll read the 4 immeasurables, which are the 4 immeasurable wishes or aspirations. These prayers help prepare our mind for the meditation that's to follow. So we'll start with taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends, hatred for enemies. Okay. So having said our prayers and prepared our mind, we'll do our first meditation. We begin by checking our posture. Our back is maybe a little bit straighter than we normally sit. Our head is straight on our shoulders, not tilted to one side or the other, maybe just a couple degrees in front of the vertical. Our eyes are either slightly opened or just lightly closed. Our mouth is lightly closed with our tongue on the palate behind our upper teeth. Our shoulders are down and a little bit back, so our chest is opened up. Upper arms are away from the sides of our torso. And right hand is on left with our thumbs touching slightly below the level of our navel. If we're sitting on a cushion, our legs are crossed in a way that we find comfortable and stable. If we're sitting in a chair, our feet are flat on the floor or on a cushion if we need that to be more comfortable. So just take a moment and scan your posture from head down to toes. Identify any sources of discomfort or tension and address those now so that the posture doesn't become a distraction during the meditation. We want a posture that's stable and maintains itself so we don't have to pay attention to it. And we'll take 3 deep breaths from the abdomen to help settle the mind. The stomach expands on the in-breath and then contracts towards the spine on the out-breath. So do that slowly for 3 times. And now we allow our breathing to return to its normal pattern. And as always, we begin our meditation by setting our motivation. And as much as possible, we generate the bodhicitta motivation, the wish to become enlightened so that we can be of benefit to all sentient beings, to ourself, our family, our friends, our acquaintances, and even those beings that we don't know. And that's not the way we normally think, so it may be a little effortful to generate that motivation, but that's okay. And having set our motivation, we now begin the meditation. It's just a simple concentration meditation. The mind, the awareness, the consciousness is on the physical, tactile sensation of the breath moving in and out through our nostrils. Nothing more than that. We're not visualizing it. We're not counting it. We're not describing it to ourselves. Just direct perception of the movement of the air in and out through the nostrils. And every time we notice that the awareness is moved to a sound or a memory or a feeling in our body, we just set that aside and gently come back to the breath. Over and over and over again. And now we can end our meditation by doing a dedication. We acknowledge that for the past few minutes we've done something a little out of the ordinary, something that's made a positive imprint on our mind stream. And we think, may that positive imprint not be lost, but may it ripen in the future in a way that benefits all sentient beings. In Tibetan Buddhism, we talk about two main types of meditation. One is concentration meditation, where we place the mind on a single object and just keep it there, a chosen object. In this meditation, we use the breath, but it could be an image of the Buddha, could be a mantra. But concentration is a quality most of us need to develop a little bit, and the breath is fairly neutral and it's always with us, so that's a good way to develop some concentration skills. And then we also do what are called analytic meditation, which are really more about like thinking very deeply about a certain topic, about suffering or karma or something like that. So it's really helpful. In fact, you have to develop some concentration to really make your analytic meditations meaningful. And usually they'll be combined in most meditations. You'll do some concentration and then you'll do some analysis. But that's just a very simple concentration meditation. So we talked a little bit last week about the word refuge, and we came up with some pretty good definitions, but I wanted to read one that's taken from the Tibetan text that really defines what refuge means in the Buddhist path. And it's a direction that one puts in one's life that will protect one from true suffering and its causes. And when we reach the goal of this direction, allows us to avoid true suffering and its true causes forever. So I like that because it's talking about it's a direction. It's not one place where we just go and stay. It's not some place that we're hiding or trying to avoid life and its problems, but it's a direction that we put on our life that will protect. Okay, it's a shelter, it protects us, but by going in this direction that protects us from suffering and its causes. And then when we reach the goal of this direction, which is enlightenment, the state of a Buddhahood, of a Buddha, that's a possibility for each of us. When we reach this goal, we are free of true suffering and its causes forever, okay? So this protects us from suffering. It's a direction we choose to go in and go in that ultimately protects us from suffering completely. So that's a pretty powerful statement. So that's a Buddhist definition of refuge. And let's see, last week I talked about there are two causes of going for refuge, of choosing to go in this direction. Does anybody remember what those were? Fear is the first one. Yeah. And what's the second one? Faith, F and F, okay. I think I've got another dud marker, yeah. That's okay. I'm not going to write that much, so this will work. Yeah, now it's flowing a little bit better. Fear and faith, both very loaded terms. And they're, like I say, these are translations from translations from translations. So how accurate they are, I can't really speak to. Another word that's used for fear is dread. Or concern. Okay. It's another word that's used sometimes. So that's what we're going to talk about first tonight. Dun, 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 dun. And I like to think about it as inform or knowledge about the consequences of one's actions. Like I said last week, it's the same mental quality that keeps you from stepping in front of a speeding car, okay? Not because you're terrified or paralyzed by fear, but you know it's going to cause problems if you do that, and you would rather not experience those consequences if at all possible. Okay, so fear of the results of our action, fear or dread of the results of our actions, concern about the results of our actions. Thank you. Chris to the rescue again. So what we're talking about is karma. Who was in the module on karma? How many people took that? Okay, most people are familiar with it, even if you weren't in that module. And so if we have an understanding, this is the Lam, it's just wonderful how one topic leads right into the next. So you talk about karma, and you get all worried about that, but then the next topic is refuge, and there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So if we have an understanding of karma, we know that everything we do, every action of body, every physical action, everything we say, every spoken action, and everything we think, without exception, every action of body, speech, and mind makes an imprint on our mental continuum that we will experience at some point in the future, either in this life or, if we accept the idea of future lives, in future lifetimes. And some of those imprints are very good, and they will cause us to be happy in the future. And some of them are very negative, and they will cause us to suffer. Okay? So that's what we're concerned, that is our concern, the result of our negative karma, primarily. Okay? It's said that if we're just a beginning, and this is, couched in terms of really accepting the idea of future lives, if we're just a beginning level practitioner, our main concern, our main fear is that we'll have a rebirth and a suffering lifetime in the future, okay, in one of the other realms. Have they talked about the realm? Have you gotten to realms of death and dying?
I think, do y'all remember? I think Steve did touch on that.
Okay.
In death.
Okay, according to Buddhist
Death and rebirth.
cosmology, there are other realms besides the human realm, okay, that we can be born into, some of them that are characterized by great suffering. And there are human lives that are characterized by great suffering, okay? So it said we want to avoid being born in a suffering rebirth, okay? That's a low-level practitioner, even though most of us aren't even there that we're worrying about that. We just want to get out of bed in the morning, get to work, and not have any major drama in our lives. Next level of practitioner is someone who wants to escape from the cycle of samsara completely. Samsara is this cycle of being born, getting old, dying, and then being forced to be reborn in another lifetime continually and continually. The cycle of rebirth, okay, the cycle of continual uncontrolled rebirth. Okay, so it said we want to escape from that completely. And it said the highest level practitioner wants to, actually is concerned about all living beings and their sufferings, okay, and sees their karma. And that's what motivates the highest level practitioner. But we're concerned about the karma we've created. We're concerned about the consequences of our actions. We're concerned what we will be forced to experience in the future based on our negative actions of body, speech, and mind. And even if we don't accept the idea of future lives and rebirth, we can be motivated by a wish to avoid suffering in this life. Okay, future suffering in this life. Okay, so this is the kind of fear we're talking about. I wanted to introduce here Now, that'd be very nice, if we just we're thinking that way all the time, but most of us aren't. The Buddha said that most of us now live our lives according to what he referred to as the 8. If you study Tibetan Buddhism very much, there will be lists and numbers of everything. Okay, so now we have an 8, what's called the 8 worldly dharmas. So there are 8 of them. Worldly, or if it means how we live our lives in the world most of the time. And the word dharma here is used in the sense of, not of the teachings of the Buddha, but truths. And he's being sarcastic here, because they're not really truths, okay? He's saying, but you think they're truths. So this is how you're living your life. Okay, and there are 8 of them, 4 pairs. The first is pleasure and pain. Next is gain and loss. Next is praise and blame. And the last is good reputation and bad reputation. And the Buddha says if we're honest and look at ourselves, we go through life trying to get as much of what's on this side of the board. We see that as the cause of happiness. And we try to avoid these as much as possible. So we cling to these, push these away. Said we're attached to having these. And the word attachment, what does the word attachment mean in Buddhism? Anybody know? It has a very specific definition.
Is it exaggerating the positive?
Exaggerating the qualities, the good qualities of something. So it's not that these aren't nice, but we exaggerate them, okay? We exaggerate their ability to make us permanently happy. And we exaggerate the negative qualities of what's on this side of the page, of the board. Pleasure, pain, pretty straightforward. Gain, loss, straightforward. Praise, hearing people say nice things about you, complimenting you. Blame, being criticized for something you didn't do, maybe even, okay? And good reputation, having people think you're a good person, that you're an admirable person. Bad reputation, people thinking you're a jerk, okay? So there's a couple obvious problems here. One is it's impossible to get rid of all these in our life, okay? It's a hopeless task. We can never do that, okay? And I think we all have some sense that however much we get of these, it's not a permanent happiness. In fact, the more we chase after these, the more upsetting, the more when these inevitably rise, the more that disturbs our mental continuum, causes mental agitation. We get so attached to these that we can't stand having even a taste of something on that side of the board. And the Buddha said that if you're willing to look at your life, you'll see that you're motivated by a lot of this. Okay, probably not completely, but this is the way most of us live our lives most of the time. So these could be what we're taking refuge in to a certain degree. And the Buddha says it's just not going to work. It's not that it's evil, it's not that it's bad, but they're just not going to give you what you're looking for, which is true permanent happiness. I always think this is interesting. Lama Zopa, who is the spiritual director of the FPMT, who died last year, do you know which one he said was the biggest deal for most people? Which pair? Which one was the most motivating for most people? Yes, reputation. This just doesn't mean the population in general, but means having your partner think you're a good person. How attached are we to that? We don't want our partner to think we're a jerk. Okay, so he said that is the most driving one for most people. Everybody's different, but he said in general. I always thought that was interesting. Any questions or comments about this? I'm putting this in here now because this is what we're taking refuge in now, okay?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is this the same list? Is it sometimes called 8 worldly concerns?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, 8 worldly concerns. Yeah, thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay. So if we look at those closely, we will develop this fear or dread of living a life according to the 8 worldly dharmas, in that it will not give us the results that we're looking for if we accept the idea that we're all looking for permanent happiness, which is what His Holiness says all the time. We're very much alike in that respect. We're all looking for happiness. We all want to be happy. We're just looking for happiness in all the wrong places. So we develop and we understand karma. Okay, so we combine that and we have a very strong sense that we're causing problems for ourselves. Okay, that rather than creating the causes for happiness, we're creating the cause for problems in the future. Okay, so that's the first part of going for refuge, the first motivating force. It's when we realize that we're out in the middle of a field and there's a tremendous lightning storm going on all around us, and we see that there's a good risk of getting struck by lightning, okay? That's the fear, okay? It's not paralyzing fear. It's not fear because you're a bad person, but it's just a very clear understanding of what will result from the things that we're doing in our life right now, okay? And the 8 worldly dharmas, the 8 worldly truths, sarcastic, according to the Buddha being a little bit sarcastic there, if we look at them closely, we'll see that they are not valid places of refuge. They're not going to, as this definition says, protect us, okay? They're not going to free us from suffering, okay? So that's the first cause of going for refuge, is fear or dread. So let's just do a little meditation on that, okay? Do a little bit of analytic meditation. Okay, establish your posture. Set your motivation. We'll begin with just a little bit of concentrating on the breath to help our mind become a little bit more focused. And now we'll begin our analytic meditation just by thinking about the 8 worldly concerns, how those show up in my life. So you're using your ability to think, but in a very concentrated, focused way. The first pair is pleasure and pain. We want pleasure, we push away pain. How does that show up in my life? The second pair is gain and loss. How does that show up in my life? How does that motivate me? How does that guide my actions of body, speech, and mind? The next pair is praise and blame. How does wanting praise and wanting to avoid blame drive my actions? And the last pair is good reputation and bad reputation. Where do I see that in my life, wanting to have a good reputation? And now let's think back to the definition I gave at the beginning of Buddhist refuge. A direction that one puts in one's life that will protect one from suffering and its causes. That's what refuge is according to Buddhism. Will pleasure, gain, praise, good reputation, will they protect one from suffering? Can they do that? Is it even possible? Can avoiding pain, loss, blame, bad reputation, can that protect one from suffering? Is that possible? Do these 8 worldly concerns have the ability to protect us from suffering? Or is that a completely unreasonable attitude to have? Have they protected us from suffering so far in our life? And we can end our meditation by dedicating the merit that we've created. Any questions or comments, either here or on Zoom? Okay. We have one here in the room.
The 8 worldly concerns, are those the same ones that are referenced in the last stanza of the Transforming Problems?
I would think so. Yeah, do you know, how's it go? Yeah, do you remember?
Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns.
Oh, very good. Yes.
May
Yeah,
I
that's what it is.
receive
Yeah.
you?
Mhm. Yeah. That's what it's referring to that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So that's the first cause of going for refuge. We'll think of it as fear, but not a paralyzing fear, not fear as a negative state of mind, but a very informed and well-reasoned state of mind, actually. It's not unreasonable to be concerned about the consequences of our action if we've really thought about karma deeply. So these things just build on each other. And the second cause of going for refuge is faith. Okay? And if we just had the first cause, just the fear, that would be paralyzing. You know, if there weren't something to do about it, some direction or some safe place to go. And what we're talking about here is not blind faith, not just swallowing things hook, line, and sinker, but again, a very reasoned mental attitude. We could say it's comparable to trust or conviction. So it's based on long, deep analysis. Okay, it's not something that happens like that. We say, oh, I believe in this. Okay. It involves looking at the objects of refuge, analyzing them, arguing with yourself, listening to teachings, taking away and thinking about and saying, are these three objects of refuge, will they protect me from suffering and its causes? Are they valid objects of refuge? That's a word that's frequently used. The 8 worldly concerns would, the Buddhists would say they are invalid, okay, in that they don't protect us. Okay, so we look at the 3 objects that we looked at and analyze are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And we talked about these some last week. And the conventional objects of refuge, the 3 jewels, are the historical figure of the Buddha who lived 2,500 years ago. He was a human being, not a god, who completely developed his qualities of wisdom and compassion. The Dharma, his teachings, and the Sangha, those who follow him on the path. Okay, sometimes he's referred to as the doctor who diagnoses the disease. The Dharma is the medicine, and the Sangha is the nurse who administers the medicine. That's referred to like that often. I'm not sure if that's such a great analogy or not. So we're out in the field, there's a lightning storm, but we know, because we've looked before, that there is a safe building just on the other side of the hill, okay? We're not out in the field paralyzed because we're going to be struck by lightning, but we know that there's something we can do about it. There is a valid shelter that we can head in that direction towards it, okay? It's not going to relieve all our suffering immediately. There's a chance we may get struck by lightning as we head in that direction, but that's a positive action we can take, okay? So we have the fear and the faith that motivates us to move in a specific direction, a direction that we've looked at closely, we've analyzed, we've tested against our own experience and our own understanding of reality, and we find that it's reliable, okay? So it's not blind faith, but it's a very reasoned, analytic kind of faith that we're talking about here. So that's the second cause of going for refuge. Next week, we're going to talk about the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that we can find if we analyze them, that make them valid causes of refuge. Okay, so that's the traditional causes of refuge, fear of going for refuge, fear and faith. Sometimes, I just wanted to bring this in, sometimes a third cause is listed if we're in a Mahayana path, okay, which is what Tibetan Buddhism is. There are different types of Buddhism. The Mahayana includes Tibetan Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, in which we are motivated not just by our wish to get out of samsara, but the wish to get all sentient beings out of samsara. And we understand that to do that, we have to get our own act together. Okay, so we go for refuge so that ultimately we can be of benefit to others. So that's sometimes listed as a third cause of going for refuge. We want to benefit others, so we know we have to take care of ourselves and get our act together. There's no point in jumping in to rescue someone who's drowning if we don't know how to swim. That accomplishes nothing. Okay, so there is, there is that third cause that you'll see listed sometimes. Okay, I think that's pretty much all the material I wanted to cover tonight. Because we'll get into the qualities of these three next week. And let's see, we have 5 classes total, right? The week after that, we'll talk about the benefits of going for refuge. Then the last week, we'll talk about the actual refuge ceremony, which some people have already participated in, some people may be interested in, and some people have no interest in at all, okay? But the first 4, we're talking about this going in a direction, and it's not a one-time thing, it's not a one-time place you go to, but it's a process of going for refuge continuously until you reach enlightenment, which is a possibility for each of us. Any questions or comments? Okay, got one in the back.
So if I recall right, so the Buddha at one point said that if you find what I'm telling you as not true, not to follow.
Yeah, the Buddha, his teachings always came with the caveat that to test them against your own experience and wisdom, yes.
So the reasoning being, because then you couldn't have refuge with the faith. Does that sound?
Excuse me?
You couldn't take refuge by having faith if you don't believe.
Right, oh yeah, yeah.
What it is being said.
Yeah, so you have to investigate it. And if you find that the Buddha is not a worthy cause of refuge, then don't go for refuge, okay? Yeah, each of us has that personal responsibility to analyze everything. None of this is taken on blind faith, yeah. Very true, thank you. Got another one? We need to toss the mics around, don't you think? Yeah.
Hello?
Yes. Yeah, the key is to hold it close, yeah.
Okay. Now I forgot my question. So one of the things from this that you didn't say, but one of the ways around it on the 8 worldly concerns is to detach yourself from all 8 of them?
Well, I don't know if detach is the right word, but unattach, okay? Yeah, it's not that you become indifferent, or you don't like to have pleasurable experiences, or you don't like to have a nice IRA. There's nothing wrong with that, but seeing that as something that's going to separate you from suffering, protect you from suffering is where the problem comes in, okay? Yeah, like Venerable Robina, she says, have all the pleasure you want. Yeah, the more pleasure, the better, but don't overestimate what it's going to do for you. Okay, it's temporary, it's changing, and it's not going to protect you.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not saying that they're bad, okay, that you need to give up all your, you need to wear a hair shirt and sleep on a bed of nails and give away all your money, but just don't overestimate the qualities that they have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we're right on time. I've got the homework here. Do you want to put that up on the web? Okay. Continue the reading. Meditate for 10 minutes, 6 times this week, and review the 8 worldly dharmas and what do they mean. And then think about the word faith. That's a very loaded topic. Okay, it has a lot of positive and negative connotations. And just think about what the word faith means to you and what makes faith valid or invalid. So I'll give this to Linda, and she'll be putting that up on the website. And that's it for tonight. We have 3 more classes. Like I say, next week we'll be looking at the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that, according to the teachings, makes them valid objects of refuge, why they can protect us from suffering. And then the week afterward, we'll look at the benefits of going for refuge. And then we'll discuss the refuge ceremony last week. Okay?
Shanti Davis, dedication
Yes,
prayers.
please. Mhm.
It's on page 246.
Yeah, can you lead that?
Sure.
Thank you.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy
by virtue of my merits.
May
no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms, the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil
be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world.
If you're not familiar with it, I just said Shantideva was a great Buddhist scholar who lived in the 800, I think. I'm not sure. Something, yeah. And his book is called A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And he's really the great poet of Tibetan Buddhism. He expressed things in a way that no one else has. And there are multiple translations of it, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and it's a very special book. And this is the prayer he wrote at the end. But I think, it's not, you could read it, it's almost not religion at all. It's just, may all these things happen, and then he ends it up, may I personally be responsible for making sure they happen. It's just aspiring towards people being happy. That's all it is. Yeah, so it's such a great prayer. So thank you, Linda, for reminding us to end with that. Okay, and everybody stay warm over the next few days, and we'll see you next week, okay? Glad we got this class in before the cold gets here. It's going to be harder to come out
In the cold.
other nights.
Thanks everyone online for joining us. Thanks for everyone in the Kadampa joining us.
Thanks,
Take care.
Bobby. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.